Gemara says in the end of Brochus, Kishem she'en parzufeim shovin, kach ein deuseim shovin. Just like all the faces are different, the same thing, the way they think is different. Every person has a different way of thinking. Every person has his own original way of looking at things. There are things that everybody knows that they're simple to everybody. We chazer them over every day. We know them since we were little children. Yet, everybody has his own way of looking at it. The same Yiddishkeit, the same mitzvah. Everybody has his own way of looking at it. But there are things that but you see all the time. You see it all the time that people are saying the same things. A lot of people are saying the same things all the time. Let them do this, let them do that. We're living in a world that the media rules over the world. I once heard from a drosha from Reb Chaim Kreisworth. He brought the Mishnah in the end of Sotah, that the Mishnah says, when it was after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, Chofu Chaverim Ubenei Chorin. Those that were called Chaverim. Chaverim in the time of Chazal means people that are trustworthy, people that are careful with everything they do. You can eat in their house. You can trust them that they meiser everything they bring into the house. They're ashamed. Chofu chaverim. And they're like the minority, a very small minority maybe, and they're ashamed of what they are. Ubnei chorin. And free men are ashamed of being free men. Reb Chaim Kreisler says, what does that mean? There are no free men anymore. America is the country of the free. We're not living under communist rule. We're not living in a dictatorship. What does it mean there are no free people? So Reb Chaim Kreisler said, it means there are very few that have their own opinion. It's the press that's talking mitoch grono. That's what is lotion. They're just saying over what they read in the paper. Of course, they're not saying it in the name of the paper. But what they're saying is what the newspaper said. Somebody said to my son Joseph, somebody said to him, they should bomb out that whole Arab village where that such and such a terrorist came from. I'm not saying I agree with him, but I'm just giving an example. So somebody said this. So he said, well, we're not Nazis. What can we do? We don't bomb out a whole village just because one terrorist came from there. I'm not sure I agree with him in this. I just want to say that to say they should bomb out the whole village, that's like that's the common thing that's said. That's not a Ben Chorim is not talking over here. There are very few Bnei Chorim left in that after the Churban Beis HaMikdash. There's once a time there were Nevi'im, there's Ruach HaKodesh, there was Gilui Shechina. People were Bnei, and that influenced everybody, and they were Bnei Chorim. People said their own opinion. But how could you say your own opinion? I mean, we have the same Torah, the same Yiddishkeit. Yeah, we have the same Torah, the same Yiddishkeit, but everybody had their own way of looking at it. Everybody puts on the same tefillin. Everybody has 4 batim in the shorosh, 4 parshas in the tefillin. Yet everybody puts it on in the morning, and when they have this kavanah, to what says in Shulchan Aruch, to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, to remember that we're B'nai Chorin, we're wearing on our head parshas that say we're B'nai Chorin. What is it? Mina Ben Chorin? Everybody has their way of looking at it. It could even be that the differences between one person and another are very, very delicate differences. A chut hasara of a difference. But that chut hasara, that's already a difference. That's already original. That's already your way of looking at it. I once heard, I used to talk a lot with, once had this short kufa in my life that I used to talk to Rab Chaim Shlomo Leibovitz, the grandson of Rab Baruch Ber. And he used to tell me stories of Rab Baruch Ber, all things about the yeshiva world in those days of Kamenetz. So he told me there was one of the best bochum in the yeshiva in Kamenetz by Rab Baruch Ber. His name was Rab David Levine. I think he was killed in the war. And in the yeshiva they called him David Kamenetzer because his family lived in Kamenetz. He says he was so good in learning. He said everything he said had originality to it, had a special time. He didn't have to say his own chidushim. He said even just to say over a k'tzos, he would say it over with a special time, a special geschmack. And that's our tafkid. One of our tafkidim in the world is to look for our own originality. And it's a very important avoda, but it's, on the other hand, it could be very confusing and maybe even dangerous because a person would start paying attention. Where am I original? With what am I different? He could go crazy and he could say crazy things and he could say crooked things and make terrible mistakes because I have to be original, so I'll say something that day is night there. I'll say that you're allowed to drive a car on Shabbos because it's only a groma or all kinds of things like that. On the other hand, you're supposed to be simple. You're supposed to be at tomim. You're supposed to be like everybody to go along. So to how do you say, to be metamrein, what's the word, to maneuver between the two ways, being original and yet being tamimistic and not showing off that you're different and not trying to show to yourself that you're different even, is a very, very delicate and hard avodah. But whoever promised us that we're going to have an easy life in this world? Nobody ever did. And you see many times, I don't know many times, but you see sometimes, and it gets frustrating, and it's frustrating to see it, the opposite of original. Sometimes you hear certain people speak, and it can be very, very frustrating. You see, they're just saying what you call the party line. Once my son, my youngest son, Tzvili, once went to a Farbrengen of Chabad, and he never saw it. He doesn't know what it is, and he went in there with a friend. I think it was Yutes Kislev. They saw two boys who were so-called misnagdim, what by them is called misnagdim. So they started up with them, and they said, you misnagdim, when you learn, and you machadish something, you feel so good about yourself, you feel gaiva. What are you talking about? My son doesn't learn so much, and he's not kolskin, that he's not machadish anything. So what are you talking to him like that for? Why don't you tell him it's so important to learn? It's such a great thing. Every word of Torah is a mitzvah. And why don't you learn another 5 minutes every day? No, that's not. Just to criticize the fact that when you're mechadish, you become a bagaiva, which has nothing to do with him. The teretz is, because that's the party line. That's what you're supposed to say. That's what they said 100 years ago to the misnagdim in Russia and in Lithuania. And the same thing they're saying it now. You say the same thing. The Rebbe never said you're supposed to be original. You're supposed to all say the same thing, so that's what they said. And that brings us to a certain story, a small story that happened to my grandson. And it got me thinking about this. My grandson's name is nachman, caplan, the son of Joseph Kaplan. When he was, now he's 8 years old, but this I think he told me this when he was 7. And he told me like this, in the cheder over there, they took them every year, they take them to a certain shul, to a certain rabbi before Shavuos, to give them a talk about Torah, before Matan Torah. Of course, there's a secret behind it. Everything is chesbonos, because that shul and that rabbi, he owns all the buildings in that area, so they have to give him covet, but we won't go into that. That's what my son Yosef is a big cynic, and that's what he said. So they took him to that shul, and he spoke to them. The next year before Shavuos, again they took them to and the shul's right next to the cheder. They took them again next year, they took them to that shul, and then the same rabbi spoke. I also heard him speak in his shul, and he spoke again. So my grandson says, and this is when he was 7 years old, he's saying this to me. He says last year he told the same story, and he said the same drosha. And this year he said the same story, and he said the same drosha again. And my child, that to him is like a child. He's not talking, he's not criticizing like I do all the time. And he's not trying to fight against anything. He's just wondering. The child is wondering. He said the same story and said the same thing. What? And it really bothered me. Why should a person do such a thing? The answer is because that's all he has. I would think, or he doesn't have much more to say before Shavuos. What's he going to say the next year? He's going to say something, no? But the interesting thing is that one could think, what am I doing? I'm saying in front of children, what's it so important? 7-year-olds, and the first year they were 6-year-olds. What's a 6-year-old? He was just because he just opened up his eyes. He was a frach shelo niftachu einov or sheniftachu einov not long ago. So what difference does it make? You just say something. The main thing is they all came together and they sang. It's not like that. First of all, children they're not the way you think they are. They're not little, and they're not stupid. They're smart, and they're big, and they understand. And don't think you could fool them, and don't think just because you're a rabbi and they're little children, you could do whatever you want. And that's a talk in itself. Plenty to talk about that. But the point that I want to bring up right now is, you want to say the same drosha that you said last year. So at least find something new. Make it new. Be mechadish it. You can take...
Rabbi Kaplan. Rabbi Kaplan. Hello?
Yeah.
How's he supposed to find something new? He forgot what he said a year ago.
Oh, he forgot what he said. You mean, he said, I never thought of that. He actually forgot what he said a year ago. You mean he's just living in what kind of, I don't know.
No, I'm just suggesting.
I don't even know what to answer you on that. But why should he forget that? But it's not like that. It's important. If it's important, you should remember. I mean, it's a maimad. You stood in front of the whole class of children and you spoke before Shavuos. It's an important thing. You're right. Maybe he did forget what he spoke a year ago. He forgot it because it's not such an important thing. If somebody would stand there in front of They would, let's say, the psicha of this man.
Rabbi Kaplan, we're taking a break now. Thank you.